This Covert Code podcast is in partnership with Forbes Books.
Aloha, my name's Anna Covert, and on this episode of Authority as a Growth Strategy, a Forbes Books series presented by the Covert Code, the topic is Starting with the End in Mind, Designing Your Authority Journey. And my very special guest is Terry Stanton, Director of Integrated Strategy at Forbes Books. Terry works with authors and executives to reverse engineer authority, starting with long-term impact and going backwards to strategy, visibility, and content relevancy. She has a unique background with public relations, marketing strategy, content leadership, SEO, and even broadcast journalism, and has worked alongside of iconic brands, including Ashley Home Store, Nabisco, and AT&T. Today, we're talking about how real authority isn't stumbled upon, it's designed, and how taking shortcuts can lead to really exactly what that is, long-term shortcuts. So thanks so much for being here today, Terry.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Anna.
Let me do it one more time.
Okay.
All right. I think I can be better. Aloha, my name's Anna Covert, and on this episode of Authority as a Growth Strategy, a Forbes Books series presented by the Covert Code, the topic is Starting with the End in Mind, Designing Your Authority Journey. My very special guest is Terry Stanton, Director of Integrated Strategy at Forbes Books. Terry works with executives and authors to reverse engineer authority, starting with long-term impact and working backwards to strategy, visibility, and content relevance. She has she has a rare mix of PR, market strategy, content leadership, SEO, and broadcast journalism, and has worked besides iconic brands including Ashley Home Store, Nabisco, and AT&T. Today, we're talking about how real authority is designed, not stumbled upon. And I'm really excited to dive right into this. Thanks so much for being here today, Terry.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's my pleasure.
So to get us started, I like to begin with the Cliff Notes version of the Terry story. You have such an interesting background and so many different things that you've done. How did you get to where you are sitting here at this role as Integrated Director of Strategy?
You know, there's that saying, it's not about the destination, it's the journey. And my communications career has absolutely been a journey with a whole lot of pit stops along the way. You know, I was a communications major. I started out, I was fortunate enough to get a job at a local national public radio affiliate in Troy, Montgomery, Alabama.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I learned there, like, that was the beginning of my journey learning the art of storytelling. So I interviewed local newsmakers. Then from there, I went into local journalism at a television station in Montgomery. And that's when I learned how to still tell the story, but tell it really, really fast because you only have 1:15, for a package. So it's got to go really quick. Did reporting, did anchoring, producing for many, many years. And my heart actually is always, I think, going to be in the journalism space. After that, I went into corporate video production. And that's when I was able to take that storytelling idea and make it longer and make it more impactful to tell the story of a brand or to tell the story of, a product that was being launched or something. So that was really the beginning of let's take all of these things that I've just learned and put it all together. Then we roll over into the digital age of search engine optimization and learning how to write for discoverability. That's when I then became an e-commerce writer for Ashley Home Store. Wow. And learned how to write for that customer journey, making sure that, the story that we're telling is actually accurate, because that's what a customer is expecting, right? Is that accuracy in a product. And then into public relations, where I put the people into the whole mix. And then it was not just about a brand story. Now it's about a personal story. Now it's about personal impact. And so in my current role, everything that I just described, I'm putting it all together and making it a product that is the result of pit stops and strategies with long-term goals in mind. So that's really how I got started.
Well, that's really interesting. I love that experience, and especially, starting with public radio, which is so, or public broadcasting, which is so, like the way you say it, it can't even be an ad, right? It's got to be like a public service statement, and no advertising, all the way to starting to write actual copy for search engines. That's a full story. It's a full journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had, a burning curiosity of what's on the other side of the fence, right? What's over there, and maybe it's not necessarily greener, but it's different. So let's go over here. Let's go learn what that's all about, and then being able to take the things and the nuggets that I picked up along the way, and to really make an impact on people who, by themselves, they want to make an impact. That's really fulfilling.
Yeah, it's like, and I really resonate with that because I also, I'm like a truth seeker, which is what I'm hearing, and that's what part of broadcast journalism. And really, like, we can sell anything, we can write copy for anything, but is it the truth? And when someone gets that product and they open it up and they experience it, what then? Because we're living in a digital age where, they're not going to have to write a letter to the company saying that they're disappointed, that gets buried and never opened, right? No, that's not the world we're in today, right? Where there's transparency is key. So I think that that's really exciting. So how do you, help guide someone who's interested in authorship to really see or imagine their future self? Like, what is the process for this discovery of beginning with the end in mind?
I think it's helping people understand that it's not a foreign concept to them. It's something, no matter what you want to accomplish, you have to know where you're going. You're not going to start on a road trip now without, pulling up your maps and saying, oh, that's where I'm going to go, and that's how long it's going to take me. And if I want to stop and get gas along the way, I have to stop there, and then I have to, account that time into my journey. That's just what we do on a daily basis, and that's how authority works too. If you think about also, like, professional athletes, they're not just practicing for the fun of it. They're practicing because they know that in their mind's eye, they have a goal, and that goal is, finishing that race, being number one, maybe, or for a marathon, just finishing a race, and also, a baseball player or any kind of athlete, they know what they want. If they're not working with a specific goal in mind, then they're just wasting time. Authority really does work that same way, because purpose is what sets the finish line. But also, you have to have a mission in mind, right? The mission is what explains why reaching that finish line matters. So in the authority space, being an expert or a thought leader, it's not just about getting more attention. It's not just getting clicks. It's not just getting followers. You want to make an impact. And so you want to know what problem you're solving, and you want your name to be associated with helping to solve that problem. You have to know the why behind the goal, and that's what makes everything make sense.
Yeah, I like that. It makes me think immediately about, because, I was going to ask you, like, why do you think people struggle? Like, what is the behind leaders and having such a hard time getting this definition, right? And maybe it's because it's not really about the ego. You don't write a book or pursue authorship to be for yourself, usually, right? That's where you realize the commitment, it doesn't align, right? And it's like, there's other things you could do. It's really for something greater.
Yeah. I think knowing you've gone through the book writing process, and you know that it's
My baby right here next to me.
Yes, exactly.
Can pet it.
That's right. And it's not a quick one and done. Oh,
No.
I'm just going to give it a little bit. It's a baby that you live with. You give birth to this thing. And so I think that if you don't know why you're doing it, are you going to finish it? How many unfinished books are there out there, right? There's a lot of unfinished books out there. You have to find that meaning, that purpose. And without that purpose, there's no point. Why would you keep going? There's an author, a famous Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was, a neuroscientist, a psychiatrist, and he wrote the book, The Meaning, Man's Search for Meaning. And so,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So he's a Holocaust survivor. And in the book, he talks about how um, purpose is what gave meaning to life for people who were in those camps. And he asserted that a lot of the survivors of those camps were the ones who were able to find that meaning behind the suffering. And that's what made them able to keep going and to survive. If you think about somebody with a serious injury or an illness, that recovery time, that recuperation period can be incredibly, taxing and draining. But if you think about not the daily grind of this rehab really hurts and I don't want to keep going, but are able to think beyond that into the independence that you get at the end of it when your life can be pain free, that's what's going to keep you going. That's
Right.
right.
Yeah. So what are some things that for leaders who are listening right now, that you recommend, some clear steps to try to ask yourself some questions to really define quickly, like, what is this how do you start this journey for yourself? If you're probably already on it, but getting clarity, because I think a lot of times people like love to do so many things that maybe they get stuck in, oh, well, can I really make a difference? Or is it really worth, how do they know that this is it?
Well, I think one of the things that you do, one of the questions that you ask yourself is, now, if you're going to write a book or if you're going to start an authority journey, if you're going to enter into thought leadership, you're presumably going to be talking about something you really know, something you know really well. For you, marketing, digital marketing, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to say, all right, as this person who's done this for a long time, and I've answered a lot of questions, what is one overriding problem that I see people like me have? And what did I do to overcome that problem? Because if you had that problem, somebody else is having that problem. And so I think that's a really good place to start. What do I want to help with? What problem is it that I've been able to solve that maybe I can help somebody else solve? I think that's one of the first questions that you want to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a similar experience. I never really thought that I would write it wasn't like something that I had on my bucket list. Oh, I'm going to write this book. Right. It happened because there was such a need in the market, and literally grown men were weeping on the phone to me. That they've been taken advantage of so many times, right? And where had I been, and what were they going to do? And I was like, wow, like if grown men are crying on the phone to me, like this is serious, like we need to.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not just them; it's everyone, right? It's small, it's big, and that someone had to do something, and it had to be. If I couldn't wait around for it to be. Couldn't wait around. I had to take the bull by the horns. But I think for a lot of maybe other people who don't have that, like it's not something that is it's happening right now, right? Or that there's really a gap, a clear gap to follow. Like for me, I didn't have to think very hard about it. It was like no one else knew how to do it, and I did, and I had to do it. But for others out there that might have more of like, there's a lot of books about leadership. There's a lot of books about, CEOs and how to and self-management and things like that. So, but everyone has their own unique story. So, is it not, what else is there out there to say to someone, hey, someone else might already be writing about this topic, but that you still have a right to be in the space, and that your word, you're still important.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Just because somebody else wrote about it doesn't mean that you can't write about it. That person isn't going to have the perspective that you had. It's not like we can say, oh, wait a minute, somebody already wrote about that. I mean, how many love songs are there? People wrote songs about love. Well, guess what? There's another one coming too. Because everybody has their own experience with that particular situation or that particular problem. You're looking at it through your lens, and your lens is your lens. It's not the person who wrote the book before you. And also I think that there's an importance in knowing who exactly you're writing for. You need to know your audience. You have to know who that audience is. One thing that we run across sometimes is people who try to cast a really, really wide net. Like, yeah, I want to answer leadership questions. Okay. What kind of leadership questions? All of them. Okay. What kind of leaders? All of them. No, we can't do that because
Right.
if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody, right? So you have to know, you have to define your niche. You have to know, okay, this is where I'm going to start talking. These are the people, these are my people right here. And I'm going to focus on talking to them. You're going to make that impact. If that pool is a little bit smaller, it's going to be, the splash is going to be bigger, right? So
Right.
once you start doing that, then you can slowly widen it and start talking to other audiences. But at the beginning, I think it's really important to know what your niche is.
Yeah, I think that back to like the topic of our whole series is, authority as a growth strategy.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, I can, we've all probably been there. Like people will, get the book, but they don't read the book. But the fact that I have the book and I've given it to them is what is important to them, right? Like, oh wow, they'll still pay. They could do it themselves. They could still read my book, but they still want me to do it for them. And I think that's another thing to think about as, we entered this 2026 year of authority and how to stand out in a crowd. And to your point, like, who are you trying to get to listen to you? And really narrowing in as part of this long-term end in mind, like, where do you see yourself and your brand? What is the next step for you in your business? And how can this book be the bridge between where you are now and where you want to be?
Yeah, and one thing also to remember is the book is just one stop in that authority journey. Yes, it is an incredibly important step in it, but sometimes you may not be ready to write that book yet. Sometimes you might need to invest that creative energy in writing, short blog posts or articles or getting your thoughts together and shaping where you would like a book to go. So, jumping ahead and saying, I'm going to write a book now before you know exactly where you want your journey to take you can actually, I think can shoot yourself in the foot because you don't know what you're doing yet. You need to know where you want to be. And a lot of times it's about getting laying the groundwork. Do you have a website that articulates who you are to people who don't know you? Is your LinkedIn up to date? Is it showing that you are in fact a thought leader because you're writing blogs, because you're writing articles, because maybe you're contributing to reporters who are looking for sources as experts for their stories. So the book is an important part of that journey, but it's just one part of that journey. And you have to know where those pieces go before you can get started.
Yeah. So now when we're in such a rapidly changing world, right? And I think a lot of people out there are wondering, well, they thought that they had a clear story, where they were going. And now AI is so disruptive. And then it's so disruptive that they're questioning, okay, well, am I on the right path? What kind of advice do you have for those to say, okay, well, we may not know, we don't have a crystal ball, right? But what are some things you can do to safeguard your investment in yourself and your journey now, even when things are so uncertain?
I think it's comes back to the word I used earlier, which is mission. Because if you know your mission, then you're going to be able to stay that course. Mission clarity is going to help you filter decisions. Markets change really fast. The world changes really fast. New platforms emerge, and old platforms change. Twitter, X, right? I mean,
Right.
that's right. So knowing that those things are going to happen, the world does not stay static. And so because it doesn't stay static, you have to stay steady. Your mission has to be really defined in your mind in order for you to create that level of impact that's going to make you a thought leader that can really influence other people. And that's what you're really wanting to do.
I love that. That'd be a great title for a book.
Yeah.
Actually, that'd be a great one. I think we know people who could do that. Just kidding.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's talk about being authentic, because I think that kind of is a natural bridge for me that, if you want to be able to really share your mission and for people to listen to you and be a thought leader, you have to be willing to tell those personal stories. You have to connect at a deeper level. And that's something that even as we become more focused on AI and some of these other changes, that is timeless, right? The campfire, like being around the storytelling is something that I think we all just naturally crave and is meaningful. Tell me about what are your thoughts on how to how to work with the leader to really pull out things that might be personal, that might be sensitive, but really as a catalyst for some of this creation of mission.
Yeah, I think some of the thought leaders that we have worked with that have been the most successful have been the ones who've been willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's being vulnerable, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
But it shows that you're human and people everywhere crave that connection. And, that's why we can see that if you're willing to put yourself out there, to show that vulnerability, to to say I'm a human too, and I've had these are my failures. I've had these successes. This is how I've picked myself up. This is how maybe I could have picked myself up better, but I didn't. But now I've learned from that, because every single one of those stories, like you said, the campfire, every single one of those stories is gonna resonate out there with somebody, and it really adds to that authenticity and that connection that people crave.
Yeah, and I think that it's an important time to think about, like, it's not really, but I think a lot of people are worried about being vulnerable because they don't want to lose credibility, right? And they think that by sharing things that maybe that are potentially negative, or not negative, but a dark side of themselves, that makes them less credible. What are your thoughts on how to talk to a thought leader and really help them through this, about what is enough to share and without losing the focus of the long-term goal?
So trying to convince somebody that they have to become vulnerable is, I don't know that you can. I don't know that there's a way to actually convince somebody to lay bare skeleton if they don't want to.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I think it goes back to that mission. And if the mission that a person has decided, I want to do this, then being vulnerable becomes easier, because they realize then that that vulnerability is part of the authenticity that's going to create that connection, that's going to help them make that impact, and it's going to help them be heard by the person who needs to hear it. They have to really want to do it. I don't think you can make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's okay to, change direction, but you don't want, as long as you're still going. It's kind of like when you're driving, you can get the analogy of you have a plan of where you want to go, right? But we used to, before we had smartphones, we had MapQuest, remember? And then when you were this, it's going to be like, whoa, especially here in Hawaii. I'm not originally from here, and all the names sounded the same. It's like Waipahu and Wai, and I was driving, and I'm like, and I'm dyslexic, so I'm like, oh my God, they're all like the same word. But as long as you can take a different path, but as long as you can get to the destination, right?
Hey,
And
yeah.
yeah. So what are do you have any kind of special Terry, I don't know, like a brand foundations exercise? How do you work with authors or executives to really, start to, because they have their end goal, this mission, and then how are you backing out some of the strategy and the visibility and the content relevancy to help them create this roadmap?
Yeah, and everybody's different. So for me, it's who is this person? And again, I always want to ask that question, what do you want? What does success in this endeavor look like for you? If they can define what success looks like, then it's much easier to create that strategic path to get there. Also, if they're willing to have an open mind, you have to have an open mind and say, yep, okay, I can see I have, one question we get, well, I have a corporate website. Why do I need a personal brand website? Well, because people don't buy corporate at the moment, right? That trust is going to be really, really important. And trust comes from, again, that personal connection that humans crave. And I'm just going to send somebody to a corporate website, well, they're just looking at the face of corporate America, and that's not what they're interested in. They want to know that there's a person behind that corporate face. So for me, it's, what do you want to achieve? What does success look like? And do you have the things that we have determined are help to build authority and credibility, and also trust, because that trust factor is super important. So that's going to be a personal brand that really shows who you are. It highlights what you do, and there's an authenticity to it. It's not just words on a screen or tabs that people can open them. And if they don't know what they're looking at, then it's not going to resonate with them. But also, does that person's LinkedIn page, does that correspond to what they're seeing on that personal brand? Every place that this person has a digital footprint needs to highlight the mission that thought leader is on. If we're getting conflicting messages, then somebody's just going to be confused, and that's not going to lead to trust. So really, trust and being willing to say, I need to work on this before I can go work on a book, or I need to work on my book before I would be ready to talk to the media for earned media hits. It's a strategic map that depends on everybody's level of where they are now in their discoverability, what they're willing to invest and put into it in terms of time, in terms of vulnerability. And of course, money's always going to be a thing. So that's going to be important. And then again, knowing what they want, knowing what that ultimate mission is.
Yeah, it's a great. It's a great recommendation. It's consistency, right? Consistency is critical. So I think one thing that people who are listening right now can do, if they have not done so already, is invest in some really great headshots. So that you could have a consistent. That's one of the things that I always notice, right? When I go to, social profiles, is like, okay, is a picture 10 years ago, right? Is it really how you look today? Right?
Yeah.
And is it the same picture or similar pictures? And so that you really can, people can recognize you, right? And it's some very small things just like that, or is your profile the same? I mean, do you own your domain name? That are some small little baby steps that you could start to do today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, do it now. If you're thinking, oh, I think I'm gonna write a book in 2 years. That's my goal in 2 years. Okay, what does your LinkedIn look like now? Start posting, because the more history you have, the more credible and the more trust you're going to be able to elicit. Have that. Like you say, get that personal brand URL. Make sure that you own that. You don't want somebody else to go buy that. That's yours. That's your name. You're the one who needs to own that.
And buy your kids too.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to write it.
We have a member who did that. He's like, he has his personal brand URL, but then he's got 4 kids and he bought all of theirs. He's like, they can buy it from me when it's time.
Or you can lease it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's never too soon. I mean, it's never too early to do something like that, to make those steps. If there's even an inkling that this is the path that you want to go on, go ahead and get started.
Yeah. And I mean, and how do you prevent some storytelling from turning into oversharing or content noise while you're kind of building your thoughts?
Can you overshare? I mean, I guess you can overshare. Yeah. But, most of the time we have issues with people who don't share enough.
Right.
That, okay, posting was kind of cool and writing an article or two was kind of fun. Well, but now I don't really want to do that anymore. And so then they stop, and then they have these really, really long gaps. So for us, really, the challenge has been in getting them to the consistency of that long-term effort to keep going.
Yeah. Oh, there was some interesting statistic. It's been a while since I looked, but it was that 70% of people are considered Facebook stalkers, meaning that they don't post anything, right?
Yeah.
Never post. They just are stalking others, or, I guess admiring, or whatever is a better word to say. And it really hit me, because I think it's true that, there's a decay, or just kind of gosh, there's so much work. But now with AI, I think that's one benefit, that it can make it easier if you to get started with some content for social, at least. Not saying you should write a book with it. I don't think you should, but at least hey, these are some things that matter to you. You can just write it out. You don't have to format it and then ask AI, hey, rewrite this for me in LinkedIn post. And it's really good at that.
Yeah, it is, and I think AI is an essential tool, obviously. Into I was just talking with our director of PR, Miguel, and we were saying, how would we have done all of the things that we're doing now, to the scope and level of service that we're providing, if it wasn't for these amazing AI tools that we have? But the thing that you have to remember to put in there is that human factor. And also, what kind of an impact is that AI post that is out there, is it making? You know, a post just to post, that becomes noise.
Right.
It's just noise. But a post that is thoughtful, and yes, it can be AI, but it has to be AI with the human touch in order to make it impactful. Then it becomes more than noise. Then it becomes something that can potentially impact somebody out there and also help you on a thought leadership journey.
Yeah. Do you have a great one of your favorite, and you work with a lot of people? Is there any in particular author that you can share a story about how, maybe there's a little bit cloudy on their purpose, but you helped them, really, with this starting at the end in mind and where they are today?
We've worked with so
I know.
many authors, right? I think one that comes to mind was a doctor who was and this is a success story. So this doctor really wanted to make an impact with young doctors, right? So he wanted to make sure that a lot of the values that he thought were really important were relayed to medical students. So it was an earned media campaign, so a lot of PR. There was some speaking that I think he ended up his in his campaign, he was able to get a column in medical journals, and that column is making it so that he can speak directly to those medical students that he wanted to talk to. But when he first started, he was just like, I'll talk to anybody. Well, no, let's really narrow that field and talk to who you want to talk to. On the other hand, there have been authors who have written books, and beautifully written books with concepts that I think are kind of unique. And this particular author wanted to, again, speak to the world and speak to absolutely everybody, but their credentials didn't necessarily back that up. So as a result, when you are wanting to speak to a topic, but you don't have credentials, it's very difficult to talk to earned media about that, right? Because journalists want to know that you've got, the education behind you, you've got all of that background, not just that you have a thought about a particular topic. They want to make sure
Right.
you're qualified, right? So,
Yeah.
so instead of a PR campaign, which is what we did, maybe we could have done some more social, because that's a place where those hard letters behind your name don't necessarily have as much impact as the thoughts, especially if they're salient thoughts that could make a difference in somebody else's life. So helping to guide and steer some of our thought leaders who have ideas of what they want. They actually know what that destination looks like, but they're unclear about the path to getting there. And we have really had to maybe gently nudge and say, this may not be the best path for you right now. We're going to suggest that you start over here in this space, start over here in the social space first, build up that social credibility. And then at that point, we can start presenting you to the media, because you already have this social cred over here.
Yeah, I think that was definitely my experience. And one thing to consider when, when thinking about what type of publisher, you want to write a book, great, but there's lots of different choices. We talk about that later in the series, about, and the hybrid publishing, which is what you guys do, and how to, really pick. And I think, I've self-published my second book, but what I really appreciated from my work with Forbes Books was that exact thing, that, you really can steer. When you're so close to something, it's hard to see past it, right? And it's easy to be self-critical because you're in your little bubble, right? But for instance, when I first wrote the book, the first 10 chapters were all about how I accumulated the knowledge that's in the book, because they don't teach digital marketing in school. Even today, if you go to, I've spoken at NYU and Bentley, where I went to college, and they're not teaching any of these things that I'm writing about either, because of the how long it takes to learn them. And so I really thought people like wanted to know like how I actually figured it out, right? And after I provided the manuscript, I was like, no one cares. No one cares. No, all they care about is the end result. You don't have to, no one cares how you got there. You're here now. We all see that you're here now, and that's what you should focus on. And it was really like revolutionary to me, because I was able to like let go of all these things of, who I had to include and thought, just the baggage of some of the things that you think are important. So I think that that's really, really a reason to work with professionals like yourself that can really like listen beyond, I want to talk to everyone. No, you want to talk to medical students.
Right.
And then
right.
we're like, oh, and then, well, how do I do that? Well, this is how you do it. Right. And be able to break through. And so I think for people who are listening, this is like an ideal opportunity, like we've talked about in other segments of this series, that if it's starting with a blueprint is completely no obligation to you. And it's a great way to begin this process of really identifying like, what does your future self, what are you going to be looking for later?
Yeah. And also knowing that for some people, the book is a bucket list item. They want to write a book and they think that, okay, I'm done. I wrote my book, my magnum opus, and I'm done. I'm good. But if they want that impact to continue, or to build into something new, something different for them, and to present those opportunities, then having that strategy that includes all of those elements that we talked about earlier, public relations, getting a clear, cohesive website, making sure that your social speaks and all of your platforms speak to exactly who you are and what your message is, and it all ties in together to your book, then that's what opens those doors. And that's what creates those new opportunities that, again, help to lead to the impact and help support your mission, because you're not just writing a book. You're not just doing all of this just to hear yourself think. You want to make sure that whatever you have done is going to help somebody. It's going to open somebody's eyes. Leaders like you, Anna, authors like you guys, it's you have so much to give, and I think that's one thing that I respect and find so inspiring from our authors is the generosity of thought, the amount of giving that you and your fellow authors, you almost feel like it's something that you need to do. You need to give this out. And I find that to be really inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, and it is. It's like a calling that that if you can help someone else not suffer, then that's your responsibility. We call it in Hawaii kuleana, which is like it's your connection and your respect, and like you have kuleana with the earth, right? Like you have to respect the earth, and the earth respects you back, right? Or it gives back to you. And it's like that's for society too. And it's like it's our kuleana to protect one another and raise each other up, because that's just part of just how we feel here, at least.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. We're going to throw out phrases. So there's this one concept. My mom was Okinawan. So I've always been fascinated by things that are, Okinawan and Japanese. And there was this, the concept of shokunin. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. My daughter-in-law is Japanese, and she'll let me know if that was wrong.
No, you can post in the comments if these are not.
So it's the concept of being a master at one thing, and not sort of that jack of all trades. Did you ever see the movie Jiro Dreams of Sushi? It's the sushi chef. Yeah. So it's a sushi chef who all they do is, for example, the young sushi chefs who want to be Jiro, eventually, they spend 3 years learning how to wash rice. Dude, oh, wait, your mic is not, I can't hear you.
I touched it by accident. Yeah. I think I have seen this one. With just the rice, like, and then it's amazing.
Yeah.
3 years.
3 years. 3 years to learn how to wash rice. Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
But I love the idea that there's something just noble about saying, this is what I've done. This is what I know. I am the master at this one thing. And it's I think a very Japanese concept. But I also think that speaks to what you were just saying about the Hawaiian concept of once you've done that, once you become that master, you have that obligation to share it, to spread that word. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a privilege and a responsibility.
Yes.
And we get to do it. It's like, it's our kuleana, and it's wonderful,
Yeah.
And so it's great to be able to start, like, and then it manifests itself. You don't even realize you're doing it, like, to your point, for the passion of trying to help others and to change the way that, will help others, basically. And, and then it becomes something else, right? It takes on its own legs. And now I get to have conversations. I just finished the 100th episode of the Covert Code podcast, and Katie Gore was my thank you. And I just got to, I cried because I was like, it was so emotional about how many wonderful people I've gotten to meet on this journey.
Right. Yeah.
And not even realizing that was going to be one of the fruits of this book and this partnership. So I think, you can get, it's so much fun to imagine what it could be, but you don't have to know everything. You just have to know the destination of that you want to be a leader of and help others. And then, to your point, the rest will fall into place.
Yeah. And you enjoy the journey along the way, right?
Right. So, how can people get a hold of you and learn more?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Terry Stanton on LinkedIn. I'm also at, I can leave my email. So anybody can get in touch with me that way.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put a lot of these things in the segment here, because now that we have 100,000 subscribers, we can have a whole section inside of our YouTube, which is exciting. And then also, if people who are listening are interested in, starting this journey, they can go to the Covert Code /Forbes Books, and we have, a way that you can reach out and get in touch with everyone who's been on the series and start your leadership blueprint exercise.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thanks for being here. And I hope everyone has had a wonderful time learning with Terry, as like I have, and I will see you at the next episode. Aloha. And that's a wrap. Terry reminded us that authority has to be intentional, starting with long-term impact and working backwards to strategy, visibility, and market relevance. Throughout this series, we've explored how authority is shaped through clarity, execution, and purpose. Authority isn't about being louder, it's about being trusted, because trust is what turns influence into long-term impact. This has been Authority as a Growth Strategy, a Forbes Books series presented by the Covert Code. I hope you'd enjoyed it as much as I have. If you're ready to start on your personal brand journey, visit the Covert Code /Forbes Books. We have some free resources on how to start on authorship, as well as other tools to begin your online brand. I hope to see you soon. Aloha.